Okay, so yesterday we introduced or started the first few verses of the book of John, and we talked about this mysterious word person. Now, we obviously know who the word is, but at this point, the mystery's been set by John. John is, even in his simplistic methods, a very easy, simple storyteller. And John started off with what on the surface looks like something, simple, but it was very profound. And John made this intentional move in this. He started off with the beginning and he talked about the timelessness of this word person. And then he talked about how the power of this person and the parts of creation. And then he brought it down and it talked about how he's there for mankind. So he brought Jesus intentionally from this mountaintop and brought him all the way down and laid him at the feet of us. But we don't know it's Jesus. We know that it's just this word person, this capital W, this logos. And so then we shift gears and we go into verse 6. And we talk about this guy named John. Now the question then begs, well, is this who the word is? So in verse 6, there was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light. Oh, okay. So we have, so that through him all might believe. Through him as in John. Then verse 8, the mystery gets clarified a little bit. He himself was not the light. He only came as a witness to the light. Now, this is an emperor wears clothes or not type situation, because we all know the story of the emperor's new clothes, where these con artists come in and they manage to convince the emperor to purchase the most fanciest and most expensive and most valuable and shimmeriest of clothes. And it turns out they were just selling him nothing. And then it took a little boy in the audience going, he's got no clothes on, for everybody to go, oh, yeah, you're right about that. John's doing the same thing here. Okay, and here's why I say that. You walk into a room, and it's very clear whether the light is on or not, right? I mean, you walk into a room, and if you can see, and it's not dark, then there's light. Whereas if you walk into a dark room, you can't see. And yet John is implying here that we can't see the light, that we have this inability to see this light, and yet because maybe all we know is darkness. See, John loves to play with this light and dark motif, and he does it quite a bit. He does it in this book. He does it in some of his other letters. But this is an important part for us to realize. This is us being the audience, watching the emperor walk down and being completely in the dark and not willing to make the obvious statement that there are no clothes. We're stumbling about in a dark world, in a dark room. And so for us, we just don't recognize that we don't have light. And so John is brought in to be that Elijah, that coming from the wilderness. There was a man from the desert with naps in his head. The ground that he walked was also his bed. I'm going to go DC talk here on you. The words that he spoke made the people assume that he was nuts. And yet everything that John said, somehow people gravitated towards. And John brought great crowds. John wasn't the light. And yet just because he reflected the light, much like the moon reflects the sun, people noticed. People were attracted to it. And they thought, what is this? But then John goes on to say in verse 9, the true light, not the reflection, not the moon, not any pale comparison. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. But here's the funny part, and this is what we were talking about a minute ago in verse 10. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. That's crazy to me. That is so weird to me to think that we walk into a dark room and we can't notice whether the light is on or not. And yet this world that Jesus walks into, remember, had been in the dark for thousands of years. It would almost be like taking someone from, I don't know, the 1300s and putting them in a room and flipping on a light switch and them going, what is this? I have no idea what this is. The people couldn't recognize Jesus. They just couldn't fathom that maybe Jesus had finally come. The Messiah that had been promised had finally come. Because I think it's important for us to remember that John is a Jew. And so a lot of the things that John is going to mention and reference is going to come with a little bit of an understanding that you need to that you have a baseline education of particular prophecies. Okay, we're out of time. We're going to talk about more of the light and the dark motif and the inability for us to recognize next time.